Hello again everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today I thought I'd do a sequel of sorts to my video on Constantius Chlorus and Constantine the Great, which you can find somewhere down there or up there. Please do go and check that out. When Constantine the Great died in 337 AD, the Empire didn't mourn him quietly. For more than 30 years, he had dominated the Empire. He had put an end to decades of civil war, defeated all his rivals, reshaped the imperial government, founded Constantinople, and bound the authority of the emperor more closely than ever to Christianity. By the time of his death, there was very little doubt that this version of the Roman Empire was his creation. But what was less clear was what would happen next. Because Constantine left behind not one heir, but a dynasty. Sons, nephews, cousins, in-laws, all with imperial blood, all with expectations, and all with the armies watching very closely. What followed was not an orderly transition, but fear, violence, and suspicion. And the consequences of it would be felt as far away as Britain. So join me today as we take a look at Constantine's sons and the revolt of Magnentius. Before we talk about Constantine's sons who did rule, we have to address the one who didn't. Crispus was Constantine's eldest son, a proven general, widely respected, and an obvious candidate for the succession. Crispus had commanded armies in Gaul, defeated barbarian enemies along the Rhine, and was a key part of Constantine's victory over Licinius at sea in 324 AD. Ancient authors praised his ability, coins bore his image, he was clearly being groomed for power. But then, in 326 AD, Constantine had his own son executed. The reason for his execution remains unclear, but some ancient authors suggested an illicit relationship between Crispus and his stepmother, Fausta. But even in the ancient world, this was seen with some doubt. But modern historians are still heavily divided on the subject. What matters for our story is this. Crispus was removed, his memory condemned, and his name removed from the public record. And shortly afterwards, Fausta was also killed. So even before Constantine's death, the Constantinian dynasty was marked by internal violence. When Constantine died in May 337 AD, the fragile balance within the imperial family collapsed. Within months, a violent purge swept through the dynasty. Male relatives of Constantine, nephews, cousins, any other potential rivals were being killed all over the place by soldiers who were doing it in the name of imperial security. Exactly who ordered the killings is unclear. Ancient writers are vague on the subject, and later writers are reluctant to assign blame. But the result is unmistakable. After the blood had stopped flowing, 3 male heirs remained standing. In September 337 AD, Constantine's 3 surviving sons were proclaimed Augusti, the joint emperors of the Roman world. And I'm going to level with you, their names are all very similar, so I'll try to make it as clear as possible. And I'm even going to include a link to the Constantinian family tree below for those who want a bit more clarity. First, we have Constantine II, the eldest of the 3 sons, who had control over Gaul, Hispania, and Britain. Then we have the youngest son, Constans, who was given control of Italy, Illyricum, and Africa. And then finally, we have the middle son, Constantius II, who ruled from Constantinople over the wealthy eastern provinces. On paper, this was a sort of continuation of the tetrarchy system: shared rule, balanced power, family unity. But in reality, the cracks were appearing right from the start. Constantine II believed that seniority mattered. As the eldest son, he thought he should have control over his youngest brother, Constans. But Constans disagreed. Tensions rose quickly, and by 340 AD, Constantine II decided to march an army into Italy to impose his will by force. But this was a fatal miscalculation. Near Aquileia, Constantine II was ambushed and killed by troops loyal to Constans. His reign ended abruptly, and his memory quietly diminished. Constans was now ruler of the entire western half of the Roman Empire. Constans ruled the West until 350 AD, and ancient sources are divided as to his character. Some praise his energy and military skill, whilst others accuse him of misrule and indulgence. But one thing that is true of him is that he took the security of the Western Empire seriously. In 342 AD, he successfully campaigned against the Franks along the Rhine, and almost immediately afterwards, in the winter of 342 or early 343 AD, he crossed the Channel to Britain. This journey seems to have impressed ancient writers, not because of what he did in Britain. Frustratingly, those details seem to have been lost, but because he made the journey when he did. Crossing the Channel in the winter was seen as incredibly dangerous, so the emphasis seems to be on the courage of him making that crossing. The historian Libanus claims that Constans travelled only with a small escort, perhaps as few as 100 men, suggesting an air of urgency. But why did he come? Later historians hint at unrest in northern Britain, the Picts, the Scots and other northern tribes causing pressure beyond Hadrian's Wall. Coins were issued celebrating a victory, and promises were likely extracted from hostile tribes, but these wouldn't last, and Constans was the last legitimate Roman emperor to visit Britain. In January 350 AD, everything changed. Whilst Constans was distracted elsewhere in the empire, the army in Gaul proclaimed a new emperor, Flavius Magnus Magnentius. Magnentius was not some distant barbarian warlord. He was a senior officer, well connected with support in the Western army and administration. Constans fled but did not escape. He was hunted down and killed near the Pyrenees. Once again, a Roman emperor died at Roman hands. Constantius II, ruling the east, now faced a usurper ruling the west, and the resulting civil war was brutal. In 351 AD, Constantius II's army faced Magnentius's at the Battle of Mursa in Pannonia, one of the bloodiest battles in Roman history. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed by other Romans. Magnentius managed to flee the battle to fight another day. The final confrontation between the two armies came in 353 AD at the Battle of Mons Seleucus in southeastern France, and at this point Magnentius's position was already collapsing. Since his catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Mursa 2 years prior, support for Magnentius was slowly ebbing away. And despite the fact that he tried to rally his remaining supporters, his resources were slowly depleting. Constantius, meanwhile, in 352 AD, was methodically rebuilding his strength, recruiting new troops and retaking towns held by the usurper before advancing westward once more. and in the end the two armies met at the Battle of Mons Seleucus, where Constantius won a resounding victory against the usurper. The exact details of the fighting are unclear, but the result was unmistakable. Magnentius' cause was finished, and on the 10th of August 353 AD he took his own life. After his victory, Constantius set about hunting down anyone who was a supporter of Magnentius. Gaul was his main focus, but Britain didn't escape his attention. Constantius sent a palace official called Paulus to Britain. His job was to find collaborators and send them back for trial. Paulus soon earned the nickname Catina, meaning the chain, for his ability to get people entangled in accusations and counter-accusations. Finding little resistance in Britain's exhausted administration, Paulus exceeded his authority. Innocent people were arrested, charges were fabricated, and fear spread. And when the Vicarius of Britain, Martinus, protested, Paulus had him arrested as well. Facing inevitable execution, Martinus tried to kill Paulus with a sword, but he failed, and he ended up taking his own life. This was the cost of paranoia on a distant province. Paulus would continue his grim career until Emperor Julian had him recalled, tried, and burned alive. A rare moment, perhaps, of justice in the ancient world. The death of Constantine the Great did not bring stability. It brought purges, fratricide, and civil war. And Britain felt all of it, from Constans' desperate winter crossing to whatever peace had been imposed to the revolt of Magnentius. The empire still stood, but the unity that Constantine had developed was already cracking. But thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, it helps immensely, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now.